She was a smoking hot newcomer who liked her beer. He was a circuit speaker sober 23 years. His eyes lit up, her guard was down. It didn't help any that his wife was out of town. The meeting ended and he made his move. For a middle-aged guy, he was silky smooth. Wanna get some coffee, just me and you? We'll talk about the steps and the traditions too. She got in his Beamer and wondered what the hell when he parked his car at the no-tell motel. The sex was great. He said, I love you, kid. I'll call you, I promise. But he never did. Well, she was as angry as she'd been in her life. First she called her sponsor, then she called his wife. So the moral of the story is abundantly clear. Say no to old timers and say no to beer. Say no to old timers and say no to beer. Say no to old timers and say no to beer. Du-dum, 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 du-dum.
Well, welcome everyone to another fun video from the Sober Curator. My name is Elise Bryson and I am the founder of the Sober Curator. And I have my trusty sidekick, Alex, who is the publisher of the Sober Curator and also the founder of the Break Free Foundation. And today we are interviewing our new friend, Michael, who has an exciting project that he's working on in the New York area that we cannot wait to hear all about. So with that, Michael, who are you? Where do you come from? Why are you here?
Elise, I ask myself that all the time, but I'm really happy to be with both of you and to be with your audience. So the project is called Sober Songs. It is an original musical, an off-Broadway musical about recovery. It's got 26 original songs. We're going to be doing it in New York at the Theater Row Theater, which is on West 42nd Street, right off of Times Square. Beautiful venue. And the idea of the show is to carry the message of recovery of Alcoholics Anonymous in song. There's an expression that I love that sometimes we start singing when there's nothing left to say. And the other thing is that, sometimes people say, well, I think I need AA, but I don't know. I don't want to go. I don't know what it's like. So it's an imaginary Brooklyn young people's AA meeting. And the cast is multi-ethnic and all backgrounds and very diverse. So the idea is that people are going to go and say, I could hang with this. This looks like fun. This looks pretty cool. So maybe I'll give it a shot. And if that's not how they feel, they'll still have a great evening in the theater and they can, buy a glass of wine intermission and enjoy themselves. So that's what it's about.
Perfect. And so talk to us about the songs. There are 26 songs.
Yes.
Did you write them all or who produced all these songs?
Yeah, I wrote them all. My partner, Nancy Lodi, arranged them. So, I'd sit down with her and I'd come in and I'd sing her the new song. And she just she's one of these musical geniuses. She'd just sit there at the keyboard or wherever and then go, okay, here's how it goes. And she'd add another verse here. But the lyrics and the melodies are mine. And they're very diverse. They range from rock to folk to country to pop to American standards to something that's kind of jazzy and blues. So there's really something for everybody. So the songs don't all sound alike. They're all entirely different, one from each other. There's one that's based on a Bach chorale when one of the, spoiler alert, when one of the characters in the show passes away. So it's a really wide range, and people who've heard the songs just really love them. And you can go to meetthenewcomers.com. I went down to Nashville and recorded 5 of the songs in a studio down there with really A-level sober musicians, touring musicians, guys who are with some of the top performers, either in the studio or on tour. And we had Brooks and Dunn's recording engineer. It was a real blast. So if you go to Meet the Newcomers,
wow.
Yeah, you can hear 5 of the songs and you can hear more. You can go to Michael Graubart on Spotify. I'll get you the information that you can put in the notes and people can hear another 13 or so songs from a different recording time. But, you come and you're going to have a great time at the show. That's the best way to put it.
Now, I'm sure you've noticed a recent movement happening on and off Broadway with shows like A White Chip, which I was very delighted to see a private showing of last night for the Big Vision benefit. as well as Another Shot. And even we saw that in the revival of Sondheim's Merrily We Roll Along, of seeing that descent into alcohol misuse through the character of Mary. Why do you think that recovery and sharing the stories of descending into alcohol misuse and like clawing your way out of it has become so prominent on and off Broadway?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think our whole society is addicted to something, and there's just so much emotional pain. And the best way to treat emotional pain is with alcohol and drugs and other behaviors until those behaviors stop working. And then it's the worst way to treat it because it just made things worse. And there's just so much pain out there. So it makes sense that people would get in recovery and then write shows about it. And I think there's a hunger today for people who want to find some way out. I mean, that was the original name for the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, The Way Out, until they found there were 13 other books with that title, but 12 or whatever. But I think that's really what it comes down to. And, you just want to find new ways to carry the message. That's really the best way to put it. And, there are plenty of things like Leaving Las Vegas or Days of Wine and Roses or The Lost Weekend that shows the descent into alcoholism. And what I want to show is the ascent up out of it and what it's really like to be a part of an AA group and what the friendships are like, what the bonds are like, what sponsorship, what it's really like to sit down with somebody you can just pour your heart out to, who's not going to judge you, who's just going to love you, and who's going to tell you what he or she has been through. And just the mutual encouragement, the idea that everybody's trying to get better, everybody's rooting for everybody. I don't know where else you find that in society. I don't think you do find it anywhere else in society. So to me, it just makes sense that, especially today where everybody's driven by technology, where there's just a hunger for connection, for real connection. And I don't know where you find anything like the unconditional love that you find 12-step meetings anywhere else.
I think that's the key, Michael, is real connection. Like, we've never been more connected in technicality between texting and social media and emails and FaceTime and Zoom and all the things. But we're also like, we've never been more disconnected because we're all attached to our little screens. And so I do think people are starving for that real human to human, in-person, heart-centered connection, for sure. And how many people perform in the show, and how long does the show run as far as like from start to finish?
Well, it's about 2 hours. It's regular night in the theater, one intermission. That's a cast of 6 and a band. And so there's one person, there are 2 people, the older man and the older woman in the group basically sponsor the 2 younger men and 2 younger women. And the characters are Black, Latino, Asian, white, gay, straight. It's a range of humanity. And the idea is just to help people identify and say, oh yeah, that person looks like me, or that person sounds like me. And you find the reason 12-step programs work is that under the skin, we're interchangeable. And that there's no difference between, the alcoholism of, Yale or jail, park place or park bench. It's all the same thing. And then when you have people who are demonstrating that sense of connection, it just really touches the heart. I like to say that the phone has an app on it. It's called the phone.
Oh, is that what that's for? I had no idea.
You can have non-asynchronous conversations where you hear other people's voices at the same time they're speaking. Now, most people aren't aware of this incredible technological breakthrough. It's right there. It's right there on you. It's only existed since 1876, and now it's on your phone. It's called the phone. But the thing is that we don't use that. We're like, well, I don't want to disturb that person. Well, that person is probably just staring at his or her phone too. So, let's reach out and touch someone. And that's really what the show is about. It's just that sense of human connection that we crave. And also, the most ignored piece of advice in the in AA meetings is don't go out with anybody in your first year. So naturally, no one in the group listens to that. And, and sometimes the consequences are positive and sometimes they're not so great. So you see that too. And then some people get it from day one, the first meeting, and other people, they have to kind of struggle a little bit, or that's just their journey. So you see that as well.
It definitely sounds like you have a very human and realistic sounding cast of characters. As a white man, why was it so important for you to have more diverse characters and to tell the stories of people from other cultures seeking comfort and seeking to sustain their recovery through AA?
Yeah, first of all, I didn't know it was that obvious that I was a white man, but I guess I have to work on my makeup. But I don't know. My wife's Chinese. I mean, it's a big, diverse world, and white people are interesting up to a point, but so is everybody else. And the more diversity you have in the show, the more points of view, the more life experience, the more broadening it is, and the more, I think, more fascinating it is. There's one of the women in the show is a Black woman in her mid-20s from LA, and she is one of the top influencers, or her character is one of the top influencers online. And like the distance between the person she portrays in her online influencer persona and who she really is and who she was when she was drinking was just unbearable. And then she had certain life experiences as a Black woman in LA that, you couldn't give to a white male character. They're unique. And there's another one of the women in the show is a Chinese woman from Flushing, which is a big Asian community in Queens. And so her life experience is going to be radically different from anybody else's because of the family expectations and the community pressures and the things that you're supposed to be doing versus this is who I really am. And so they're just life experiences that might be more natural for someone from a different background. I think if you had 6 white men up there, it'd be kind of boring. I mean, I think we've seen that for 100 years. So
Yeah, we've already seen that. We've definitely already seen that
Yeah.
show. So last year the show was one night only, but this year it's going to be 4 nights. Is that correct?
That's correct. We did it as a workshop a year ago in a rehearsal studio in New York with a cast of 6, and they were not off book, meaning that they had music stands in front of them. They had learned the songs, but they're reading the words, and reading the script as we went, and a band, and the audience absolutely loved it. They just loved it. And the way you know that the audience loves something is you sit behind them and you see if they're on their phones. Because if you can keep people off their phones for 2 hours or, for the 2 45, 50-minute acts, then you have a winner. So that was kind of the acid test. So we did it that way. And this time it's a real live performance, real live theater. It's a theater experience. They're off book. These are actors. We're very excited because we think we found the Angie, the Chinese woman. We've cast all 5 other roles. We've got 3 of them coming back from the workshop, 2 new people, and then we're struggling to find an Asian woman in her 20s or somebody who could play that role. And now we've got a couple of candidates. So my director and I are going back and forth. And I mean, that's the other thing. In New York, there's just so many talented people. We had something like 200 submissions for each role.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's for a 4-night run, a week of rehearsals and 4 nights. And there's just so many talented people. So to be able to draw from the ultimate talent pool in New York means you're going to have, if you cast it right, you're going to have a phenomenal cast. And we think we do.
That's amazing. So we're going to put the link to get tickets in the show notes, but could you let us know what dates this will be
Absolutely.
available?
Yes, the show will have its opening night Thursday, December 12th, 7 p.m., Friday night, 13th at 8 p.m., Saturday night at the 14th at 8 p.m., and Sunday afternoon. I don't know if it's 2 or 3. I guess I ought to know that, but it's a Sunday matinee. So those are the 4 performances, and it's going to be a benefit for the 46th Street Clubhouse, which is an AA clubhouse, which has been sort of teetering in terms of its existence. It's right in Times Square, and they have meetings. They have AA meetings and they have all 12-step meetings. They're all day long, and it caters to a very, very diverse crowd because of its location. And it's sort of just a very precious thing to people who are sober in New York. So we're doing it as a benefit for the 46th Street Clubhouse, just to sort of, help them out a little bit. So
That's really, really wonderful. I've had a chance to attend a meeting there, and a very dear friend of mine, every time she flies into New York, she attends meetings there. So it's wonderful that you're giving back to such an important pillar of the AA New York City community. Now, something that kind of flashed through my mind when you were discussing the influencer character, could we possibly see her descend into sober talk and show that recovery journey on her social media channels?
that's good. That's not where it goes. I'm not going to tell you where it goes because I don't want to do a spoiler alert.
Yeah,
But,
no spoilers,
but
please.
that's not where it goes. Let's just say that, well, there's an expression that things that can't go on stop. So she has to have a reckoning about the disparity between the image that she's creating for others and then the issue of getting real. And she has a song about getting real that's really fun. So
That's really fun. I see what you did there, Michael. I
So
got dad
what-
jokes for days. I got dad, even though I'm a mom.
well, I've got dad jokes for my kids, but I've also got other jokes, which some of them are in the show.
Are there, do you think that is the show kind of take on a dramedy feel? Like it's got some drama, but and some, some definite feelings, but it's also got some laughter and some fun and
Yeah.
some joy.
It's the range of what you'd find in an AA meeting, which is,
All
love
of
and
that.
it's all of it. You see people falling in love, you see people breaking apart, you see people going out and dying. You don't see them die, but you see it all. It's all, there's a spoiler alert, but I'm not going to tell you who. But you really do see the full range of human existence, which is what's on display in any 12-step meeting. And the show reflects that. And there are times when you're gonna be laughing and loving it, and then there are other times when you're gonna be just like, how could that have happened? And then everybody's got to pick up the pieces when something the way that happens in a meeting when somebody goes out and dies. Everybody has to pick up the pieces, and
Yeah.
it's you just feel shocked and shattered and betrayed and all of that. So
Yeah.
everything that happens in a meeting, or outside the meeting, talking to the sponsor of the coffee shop, or standing on the Brooklyn Bridge ready to jump, or whatever it is, you see it in the show.
That's great.
Yeah, or the meeting after the meeting that so often is held in the parking lot for the nice relief of a smoke break. Now, something that I'm wondering, a lot of writers will kind of infuse themselves into the show. Is any part of the book or the script autobiographical, or is there a character that you identified most with as you were writing this?
That's a great question. And I've not had a drink in 32 years, 9 months, and 13 days, but who's counting? But so in that sense, there's a little me in all of them. I mean, there has to be. And as much as possible, they have their own journeys. There are things that you hear when things that other people go through that just stay with you. And maybe something you heard 30 years ago has just never left your heart, and it deserves a place in the play without disrupting anybody's anonymity. So, yeah, let's just say that the love interests are the Asian woman I mentioned a moment ago, and a guy who is late 20s. He played in a band in Asbury Park, where Bruce Springsteen came from. He's at the tennis, and he's so good looking that the model agencies go to the tennis tournaments, the U.S. Open, to pass out business cards to prospective models. And he's so good looking that he gets a card there, and so he ends up being this incredibly successful underwear model in New York. And then he's got his his private parts descend 10 stories in a billboard in Times Square. And then he's cast in a Broadway show because he can act and sing and he's famous and good looking. Now, none of those things has ever happened to me. So in that sense, it's not as though it's my life story that got fictionalized. Nobody ever came up to me at the US Open and said, we think you should model. I mean, my wife is Chinese, but she's not the woman in the show, and the woman in the show is not my wife. So yeah, so I mean, there's always a little bit of you in every character, but the goal is to differentiate them from yourself and from each other so much that it's a group of people, and that when you're watching the show, you forget you're watching a show. You just think if it's done right, you're right there in the meeting with them. The play is very easy and simple to produce. It's 6 chairs and the 2 banners, AA banners, and a lectern, and that's it. And everything, all the scene changes are indicated with changes in lighting. So it's very inexpensive to produce, which is great, but it's just as simple as can be. I mean, just and people come into a meeting and they're like, can strangers in folding chairs save my life? Yeah, they can if you let them. God working through them, or higher power, whatever you call it. So this is a really long answer. I don't remember what the question was. I think I'll stop talking.
It's okay. It's okay. But it's so great to, as a writer, have that outside perspective of knowing, okay, I want to put on this show and I want to make it really tight, really contained. I want to be mindful of the setting. And I've kind of seen this trend emerging where you'll see shows that will have a smaller cast. The scene changes will be done through lighting. And we've seen iconic shows like, oh, I'm going to mess up the name. And my brother, when he listens to this, he will kill me. But I believe it's like Songs of a New World or Tales of a New World, where it's done with 4 characters who throughout the show wind up playing around roughly 24 different characters and kind of depicting the story of each of these people's lives. And it's very cerebral, but it's also very moving. And it got, unfortunately, a very short run, but it's kind of gained this cult following after it. So I really commend you to be able to kind of step into that mindset in terms of already like seeing what the staging will be and just kind of sitting in the writing phase.
Yeah, thank you. It's meant to be immersive theater. It's meant to be done in a church basement. And I had long arguments with my director. I wanted it in a church basement. He's like, do it in the theater. The lighting will be better, blah, blah, blah. It came down to the wire, this theater and a church in Midtown. And if the church had come through and actually, agreed to do it, then we might have had it there. There's just something about immersive theater where you are in the space.
Mm-hmm.
And, I went to see Stereophonic this weekend. It's a big Broadway musical about a 70s band. And, I walked in and sat down and I looked at the set and I kind of started to drool because it's like, this is what $20 million gets you. It's phenomenal. The set is just awesome. It's a recording studio from the 60s. And from the 70s, it's totally realistic. And the thing is that nobody comes to shows to see a set. Nobody left the show and said, well, I didn't like the songs and I didn't believe the characters, but the lighting was really good and the costumes and this. So, it's sort of like, those are the nice to haves, but the have to have is, do you like the people? Do you believe the people? Do you believe the message of the show? Did you get caught up in it? Did you love the songs? Did you love the variety of the songs? So it wasn't the same thing over and over. Those are the have to haves. So, my attitude is, we're our budget for the show is $30,000. It's a lot of money, but it's not 20 million, which is what 3 blocks away, Stereophonic and all the other Broadway shows are spending. But again, it really comes down to, do you like the people? Do you buy the people? Do you buy their stories? Do you empathize with them? And then maybe do you see a little bit of identification and you say to yourself, something, maybe I need this, or I need to bring Joe to this, or I need to bring Jane to this. She needs to see this because, I'm just going to tell her we're going to a show, but she's got a problem and I want her to, and I want her, and the other thing is that, every generation has a musical that's its own, that just speaks for the generation, whether it's Avenue Q or Rent, or, going back further to my day, not that I'm dead, but a chorus line, or, I mean, they're just shows that speak to the generation. And that's what I want this to be, because we're living in a time of immense, intense emotional pain, on top of all the great material things that we have and we enjoy and we're grateful for. But there's just a lot of pain out there. And this is a show about people who found a way out. And I just want everybody to feel like, to feel ownership of the show, to go and say, Sober Songs belongs to me. I love the music. I'm going to wear the cap. I mean, we don't have merch, but this time, but it's in my heart. This music, these songs, these performers, the message, believe in the possibility of change. I want this show to be the musical for this generation.
Do you
I
have a favorite
love that.
song out of the 26 songs? Do you have one that's just like, oh, your favorite? That was not me singing, by the way. You don't want to hear me sing.
I liked it. I mean, it's like, do you have, if you have kids, which is your favorite kid?
Yeah, which is your favorite?
I mean, there's one called Step 13, which is kind of fun, if you know what that's about.
Yeah, sure.
The uninitiated, that means that where you're hitting on newcomers, which is not appropriate. But it's just, it's big brassy songs. She like Great Balls of Fire, that kind of feel. She was a smoking hot newcomer who liked her beer. He was a sober speaker, circuit speaker, sober 23 years. His eyes lit up, her guard was down. It didn't help any that his wife was out of town. The meeting ended and he made his move. For a middle-aged guy, he was silky smooth. Wanna get some coffee, just me and you? We'll talk about the steps and the traditions too. She got in his Beamer and wondered what the hell when he parked his car at the no-tell motel. The sex was great. He said, I love you, kid. I'll call you, I promise. But he never did. Well, she was as angry as she'd been in her life. First she called her sponsor, then she called his wife. So the moral of the story is abundantly clear. Say no to old timers and say no to beer. Say no to old timers and say no to beer. Say no to old timers and say no to beer. There you go.
Sounds like an end
I don't think we can top
nice
that.
Broadway finale in terms of the instrumental. I love how, I found profoundly through my life that theater and specifically musicals have been there for me when I've been at my lowest points. And theater speaks to us in a way that other forms of media just doesn't, because it's live. It's something that you can experience instead of watch. And I'm wondering, what's next for this show? Is there a future beyond these 4 performances?
Well, I certainly hope so. And I agree with you 100%. I mean, they say that if you want to influence millions, going to the movies, if you want to influence thousands or hundreds, then go do theater. But the thing is that what I love about it, and I've loved about it since I was a kid, is the immediacy of it. They're doing it just for you and the other 800 or 1,000, whatever number of people in the audience, 88 in this case. And it's here and it's gone. The performance is here and then it's gone. And then when it's over, the cast goes home, you go home, and ideally, Sondheim had the best line. He said, my day of a great show is one where you laugh your head off for 2 hours, then you go home and you can't sleep. So that's what I want. That's what I'm hoping these audiences will see it to be. And the goal is to have the show, because it's so easy to produce, to license it and have it in every city in the country. I mean, there's, we could have 100 casts, doing 100 cities all over the world. So that's really the goal, is to create something, in December on those dates, December 12th through 12, 13, 14, 15. I ought to be able to rattle that up. That is going to attract people who can produce it anywhere. Again, because it's simple and cheap to produce, and it's so powerful. And the leap from 30,000 to 20 million is a big leap in terms of Broadway. Shows don't have to go to Broadway to be incredibly successful.
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to say no. And you know, there's a Deepak Chopra line I love. A line I love. There's a Deepak Chopra line I love, where he says, "Where's the money coming from? From wherever it is right now." So, you know, my attitude is that if the show is as strong as we think it is, and as meaningful and as powerful and as fun and as shocking at times and appealing, then the audiences will be there, and the money will be there, and we'll be able to, you know, take this thing to a lot of new levels.
Well, I love that so much, and I really appreciate that you took this time with us today. And I know Alex is going to go to the show for sure because she's in New York, and now I've got to figure out a way to get there during one of those dates because it just sounds amazing. But there's a playlist on Spotify we'll include in the show notes as well.
Great.
So fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Michael.
Lisa and Alex, this is really fun. Thank you both for having me. And, you know, let's just keep it rolling. Come to Sober Songs.
Sober Song.